become part of the action and have a vital role in the story. That's kind of where I started from. In this story, What the Tide Leaves Behind follows a young man who's maybe in his late 20s or so. He's living in Derry. He's a very aimless drifter kind of guy. He doesn't really have a plan or ambition or goals. He doesn't know what he's doing with life. He's fairly lost. He's living there by himself. His older sister has moved away to Australia. His father passed away when he was a child. He was a victim of a bombing during he's considered one of the last victims of the Troubles. And his mother had become very distant from him since then, and had since sold their house in Derry and moved to this little cottage on the coast in Donegal, in a town called Dunnybegs, over a little bay called Killfish Bay. So our protagonist, our hero, Thomas, is alone in Derry. He's got a part-time job in a bookstore and not much going on with his life. The story starts at the funeral of his mother. Thomas's mother has a stroke, passes away out at her cottage in Donegal. And it's decided, mostly by Thomas's older sister, but Thomas goes along with it, that he will move into the cottage and be a caretaker of the cottage, clean his mother's stuff out, get it ready for sale. And that's what he does. He heads out to Donegal, to this cottage. And when he gets there, he finds a dog. He hadn't realized that his mother had a dog, so he's inherited not only a cottage, but a dog as well. So here he has, in effect, washed up on shore what the tide left behind is this young man in this tiny village in a very remote corner of Donegal. If you are familiar with Donegal, it's a very serrated coastline. There's a lot of little bays and cut-ins and peninsulas and a lot of places just like this, Dunnybegs. So the story really is his first year in this town of Dunnybegs. It's how he learns to take care of the dog, learns to get out and go on walks with the dog. Through the walks with the dog, learns to slow down and actually pay attention to the world around him, and interacts and meets with a host of characters from the community, some eccentric and some not so eccentric. And it follows his first year of his in Dunnybegs and how he comes to find himself. I think sometimes you have to get really lost before you can find yourself. And that's what happens to Thomas. There are a couple other subplots. His mother's cottage is overlooking this small bay called Killfish Bay. And there is an American company, an international fishing company, that wants to build a fish farm in that bay. There's a lot of community opposition. There's also community support because it would bring jobs to the bay. Thomas in the story starts taking pictures of his dog as they go on walks, and is taught by some of the colorful locals how to use social media and build a following on social media. And that happens to the point where he becomes kind of a local celebrity, and suddenly his opinion on what happens with this bay, whether it gets developed as a fish farm or left natural, becomes an important issue, and he becomes an important figure in the decision. There's several other really interesting, colorful characters that the book introduces. There's Fergal, who is the town mayor, who's also a butcher. And his dream is to also honor his late father, who was a fisherman, by opening a fishmonger store next to the butcher shop. He'll be able to do this if the fish farm comes in. There's Rose, or Roisin, who is the owner of the little grocery store in Dunnybegs. And a good example of one of the people that the hardy folk who live there and who've made a living in this remote hardscrabble place. Here's Kara, is Rose's niece, and she is a veterinary student. There is Eamon, who is the bartender and the owner of the Shamrock pub, where a lot of the action takes place in this story. And then there's Fintan. Fintan is a bureaucrat